You know, I was just sitting here and I was trying to think of that frightening thought of an army of lances. That is so scary. That is just absolutely so scary. I could not imagine. I mean, if you guys, I know, Dennis is over there shaking his head. There's just no way. Could you imagine? I can't imagine 2 lances. It would just, that would be more than I can handle. It would be crazy. And then not only that, I got to thinking about the other thing that he said, because he said, you know, the illusion or what he was kind of pushing towards was the fact that somehow, some way, if you become like me, then you're going to have a great life group. And the honest truth is that he's got like 38 people that are a part of his life group. I mean, he is overflowing, and I have like 12. And I'm losing them every day, right? I mean, people are going, man, you're boring. So I just don't understand. You don't want to be like me. You want to be like Andrew. So, yes, so much like Andrew. So I'm glad you guys are here today. It's gorgeous outside. I'm always impressed. And I probably should stop saying that, because if I keep saying, I'm impressed, it's so pretty outside, and you guys chose to come in here. Because if one of these days, and I imagine some of you that aren't here, that are going to listen later on, you're not here because I keep saying, it's so gorgeous out here. What are you doing here? And so I'm excited whenever I look around and I see people that want to come and be a part of this. So we're in the midst of this series that we've entitled The Heart of God. And basically what we're doing is we're taking a look at the motivation of God, or the why behind what God does, right? The why behind what God does. Because whenever you discover the heart of someone, just stay with me for a second. When you discover the heart of somebody, then you discover kind of the actions. It speaks to the actions and to the words that they say, right? So in other words, whenever you discover what's behind everything, then that makes better sense of some of the things that they do. Because most of us, the people that you don't know their heart. You just take a look at what they do, and you got to come up with some ideas about who they really are. It just gets really confusing, and it's just hard to understand people unless you can discover who the heart, what the heart is. And we've all been there, right? All of us have been in those situations where we misinterpreted somebody else's heart, or we misinterpreted somebody else's words or their actions or something like that. For instance, someone comes to you and they say, you know what, I am so upset with Joe. Let's just say Joe, okay? I am so upset with Joe. And you go, oh, really? Wow, what did Joe do? And then they kind of describe the situation. You ever had this happen? Somebody's just really, really mad about somebody else in some situation that they did, and they describe the situation. As they're describing the situation, you're trying to think of Joe, and you're going, that just doesn't sound like Joe. Have you ever had one of those situations where somebody's describing something that somebody did, and you're thinking, man, that doesn't sound right. So you even voice it, right? You say, that doesn't sound like the Joe I know. And they get really indignant, and they look at you and they say, well, he really did it, right? And you kind of go, oh, okay, all right. So then what you do is you seek out, because you want to seek to understand, you want to know a little information, and you know that this individual is really hurt, and that somehow, some way Joe hurt them. So you go to Joe and you say, Joe, this is what happened, man. Can you tell me kind of what's going on? And maybe what you hear is maybe you get the whole story. Right? Because I don't know if you guys know this or not, but whenever you tell your side of the story, it's not always the whole story. I don't know if you knew that. It's you have your perspective on the situation. So you sit there and you're telling kind of the situation. You don't always put it all out there. So maybe you tell Joe, and Joe says, well, wait a second, let me tell you what happened here. Right? So you get more information because maybe they left something out. Or what has happened to me often is that I go and I talk to them and I say, man, Joe's really upset with you. And they're genuinely surprised. Have you ever had that happen? They look at you and go, what? I didn't even know. What happened? And so you kind of tell them the thing. They go, oh my goodness, I didn't mean to offend them. I would never do that, right? That's what they say. I would never do that. I had a situation like that happen to me. It was about 1.5 years ago or so, where somebody, I had offended somebody. I hurt somebody, and apparently I hurt him pretty bad. And they made the decision. It hurt them to the point to where they said, you know what, I'm not ever going to go back to that church again. So they kind of just disappeared. What kind of exasperated the whole thing was the fact that I didn't notice that they weren't there, right? Because there's a lot of people that sometimes attend Valley, and we've got all the services and things like that. So I just didn't notice that they were there. And it was like 2 months of them not being there, which is a long time. And I'm so sorry that if that's happened to you, I'm telling you right now, I am so sorry if I missed that. But they were gone, and they were upset and everything else. And a friend of mine saw them in church, or saw them in the grocery store, and said, hey man, I really miss you. And they said, yeah. They said, we miss you coming to church. Said, we don't go to that church anymore. They stopped. They said, what do you mean you don't go to that church anymore? Yeah, we don't go there because, and then they told the story. And they told how I had offended them and how I had hurt them. And it was made even worse because I didn't follow up. And I didn't ever say, hey, where are you guys at? And now they were even hurt worse. So my friend comes to me and says, hey, Lance, I got to talk to you. You remember so-and-so? And I said, yeah. And my mind starts going, oh, I haven't seen them in a while. And they said, well, you really offended them. And they sat there and they laid out this thing to me. I went, oh, what? I mean, I'm mortified at this point. I'm going, oh, no. So immediately, I got in my car, I went over to their house, I sat down with them, and I apologized, and I told them, hey, I didn't mean to do that. That wasn't part of the plan. It wasn't what I was hoping to do. And it was so interesting because as we were sitting there and we're talking back and forth, and they begin to tell me their story with all the emotion in it and all the hurt and everything else, and they begin to cry, and a little tear begins to well up in my eye, and I look at them and I say, you've been living with this for 2 months. And they said, yeah. So you've seen me in this light for 2 months. They said, yeah. I am so sorry. I hope you understand that I didn't mean to do that that's not who I am. And then they said, but you did it. And see, here's the thing. It is so easy for us to get off track when we don't know what's really going on in the heart of the individual, right? I mean, all of us have been there. We've either been on the offended side where somebody offended us and we make some assumptions about what it is that they said and what it is that they've done, and now we've kind of painted them in this ugly picture, or we ourselves have been the ones who offended and we really didn't mean to do it, and somebody's really upset and they're out there talking about it, so we're going, what happened? What's going on? Why? And it's all because we have this misunderstanding because we don't have the whole picture. We don't understand the heart of the individuals that are involved in it. And I know we do the same thing with God, right? I mean, we misread his actions, or we let other people's opinion form our opinion, or we let the past understanding inform our present understanding. This is why it's so important. The reason that we're doing this series is because it's so important to know the heart of God, because knowing the heart of God informs what we see and what we hear and what we think about God. So the question comes, and we asked this last week, then how can I know the heart of God? And what we discovered last week is that if you want to know the heart of God, you need to look at the Son of God, right? That's what we said last week. We said if you want to know the heart of God, you need to look at the Son of God, because the Son of God was on display. It was God on display. The writer of Hebrews says this, Hebrews chapter 1, verses 1 through 3, and we looked at this verse last week, but I just want to hit it real quick. In the past, God spoke to our ancestors through the prophets at many times and in various ways, but in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he has appointed heir over all things, and through whom also he made the universe. And then listen to this, because this is where we get the traction, right? This is it. Right here. The Son, meaning Jesus, the Son is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being. The writer of Hebrews tells us Jesus is God in the mirror. To know him is to know God. That's the reason that we're spending the next 3 weeks just taking a look at some of the events, some of the things that Jesus said, and some of the things that Jesus did while he walked on the earth. And as we do this, I think we're going to begin to pull back the veil on the heart of God. And you're going to walk away going, I didn't know that about God. Because here's what I know. Everybody in the room, you may think you have an understanding of God, but something has informed you, and you've got a false image of who he really is. And I'm hoping, and I know this is just a short little series, but I'm hoping that as we kind of dive into this and we take a look at some of those events in the life of Jesus, you will walk away and you'll make the connection and you'll say, that's my God. That's not just Jesus who walked the earth, which I think sometimes we do, right? Sometimes we think, that was just Jesus. That's not God, that's just Jesus. Jesus is, he's far more compassionate than God. He's more loving than God. No, he is God in the flesh, showing us who God is. So today we're going to look at an event. in the life of Jesus. And let me, there's a warning ahead of time. I'm just going to let you know that this is an event that we've looked at several times, and we just looked at it probably, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks ago, okay? So some of you, whenever we get there, you're going to go, wait a second. He's just regurgitating things. And you know what? I might be. But still, listen. This is some good stuff. And there's some important things that are found in here. So I want to make sure that we get, and let's just be honest. Some of you weren't there, right? Some of you weren't there. And some of you that were there, you didn't listen anyway. So for some of you, you're going to sit there and go, hey, that's really good stuff. Wow, that was awesome. What day did you do that? So anyway, thank you so much. Thank you. Man, I can always count on the guys from the peanut gallery. So anyway, before we do this, I want to look at something that the psalmist says in Psalm 139. This is a psalm of David, and this is a beautiful psalm. And I think in so many ways, this shows how it is that God pursues us. He pursues our heart, okay? Which for some of you, maybe that's a new concept. I don't know if that's something new to you, but God is pursuing you, right? See, every world religion, I'm going to say every other, but I've got to put a little bit of a precursor there, a little, anyway, parentheses in there, because listen. Every other religion tells us that we need to pursue God, and we need to do things that catch God's attention, and we need to do good things so that God will say, hey, you know what, you can be on my side, you can be with me. But Christianity, and I got to be careful with that because there's a lot of Christians that believe just that you need to perform so that God will look towards you, right? You need to do certain things so that God will be favorable towards you, that God is sitting away. As a matter of fact, God is running at times away from you, and you have to go and find him. But the reality is that the Bible tells us that God is pursuing us, that he seeks us out, that he is constantly looking for us, and he knows you better than you know yourself. So let's look at this, Psalm 139. If you have your Bibles, I encourage you to look, because this is one of those Psalms that I think that one of these afternoons in this next week, something's going to happen, and you're saying, I got to hear that again. I just got to hear that again. So Psalm 139, we're going to begin in verse 1. It says, "O Lord, you have examined my heart and know everything about me. You know when I sit down or stand up. You know my thoughts even when I'm far away." Now let's just stop there for a moment. Just for a moment. Listen. God knows your thoughts. Just let that settle in. Right now, he knows your thoughts. Right now, you're trying to think, oh my goodness, he knows my thoughts. Stop thinking that. But you keep thinking the bad things, right? And right now it's getting worse and getting worse and getting worse. You go, stop. He knows your thoughts. That's kind of creepy, isn't it? I mean, listen, in human relationships, right? I can be in the same room with you. I can smile at you. I can pat you on the back. I can, talk with you and laugh with you and everything else. But in my head, I can be thinking to myself, he's such a goofball. And you would never know. But God knows your thoughts. He knows what you think. Not only does he know what you think, but he knows why you're thinking it. You don't even know why you're thinking it. You ever thought about that? Come on. There are times that something goes through your head and you say, where'd that come from? You're going, stop. Why am I doing this? Why am I going down this road? And God knows. He knows the why behind your thinking. Verse 3, he says, you see me when I travel and when I rest at home. You know everything I do. You know what I'm going to say even before I say it, Lord. Now that's crossed the line, right? That's worse than Facebook stalking, isn't it? I mean, this is like full-on stalking. This is staring in somebody's window. This is putting some sort of tracker on you. This is making sure that I am constantly with you. God knows everything about you. Theologians call it the omniscience of God, meaning that God knows everything. He knows your past, he knows your present, and he knows your future. But as I read this seems a little bit deeper than that, doesn't it? Come on, this is beyond just knowing your past, your present, and your future. This is a God that knows your thoughts, your history, your fears, your joys, your sorrows. He knows what makes you angry. He knows what gets you really excited. He knows everything about you. And here's the kicker. He still wants to hang out with you. You couldn't get your dog to hang out with you if he knew everything about you. right? And yet God knows everything about you, and he still wants to hang out with you. Verse 5, he says, you go before me and follow me. You place your hand of blessing on my head. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too great for me to understand. I can never escape from your spirit. I can never get away from your presence. If I go up to heaven, you are there. If I go down to the grave, you are there. If I ride the wings in the morning, if I dwell in the farthest oceans, even there your hand will guide me and your strength will support me. So not only does God know everything about you, but he knows everywhere that you're at. He is everywhere that you go. Theologians call this the omnipresence of God. Now let's just be honest for a moment. That's a little frustrating, isn't it? Come on. There is no place you can go where you can hide from God. There is no place that you can go and God doesn't know, doesn't see what you're doing. Several years ago, Josh, my oldest, he was 4 years old. And as I was preparing this, I thought about this story. He was 4 years old, and he was in the backyard, and he was just playing. And I was sitting at the sliding glass door, kind of watching what he was doing, and thinking, man, what a cutie. He's so cute, man. He's just a little me. That's so fun. Oh, look at him. And then all of a sudden, he goes and he does something I didn't want him to do. He goes down, he reaches for the hose, because he's going to take the hose, and it's odd. He's going to splash it everywhere. So I knock on the door there. I said, no, Josh, no. And he looks up at me, he looks down at the hose, and he looks back up at me, and I said, no. And he puts it down. I said, oh, what a good boy. So then he stands there, and he's looking around. He looks at the hose, and he looks up at me, and he looks back at the hose, and he looks up at me, and then he starts to reach for it. And I knock on the window, no. Don't touch the hose. Don't touch the hose. So he doesn't touch the hose. I said, man, what a good kid. Just like me, man. What a great little me he is, right? And he's looking around, he looks down at the hose, he looks up at me, he looks down at the hose, looks back up at me, and he says, Daddy, turn around. Come on, let's be honest. There are times you wish God would just turn around, right? Hey, God, just turn around. Just turn around. Just go ahead, just turn around. Verse 11, I could ask the darkness to hide me and the light around me to become night. But even in the darkness, I cannot hide from you. To you, the night shines as bright as the day. Darkness and light are the same to you. In other words, we can run, but we cannot hide. Not only does God know the real you, and not only is he closer than you think, but listen to this, he has always been at work in your life. Listen to this, verse 13. You made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day passed. He knows you intimately. He knows everything about you. Nothing escapes his knowledge. Now listen to this, because I love this part. Don't miss these next two verses. This is amazing. He says, how precious. He knows everything about you, and then the psalmist starts out by saying, how precious are your thoughts about me, O Lord. They cannot be numbered. I can't even count them. They outnumber the grains of sand. And I wake up and you are still with me. It almost sounds as if he's sitting there going, I can't believe that you know me this well, and yet you still want to be with me. You love to be around me. Listen, God's heart is for you. You got to know that, right? I mean, in the midst of all the craziness, all the chaos, everything that happens in our world, all of the trouble that comes our way, God's heart is for you. It doesn't matter how far you've strayed. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter how fast you run. It doesn't matter how confused you are about him. He is relentless in his pursuit of you. and he pursues you with a love that will never give up. Let me say it again. His heart is for you. That's why he sent Jesus. That's why he sent Jesus. He sent him so that you would know how much he loves you. But not just how much he loves you, how much he wants you. Come on, have you ever really been wanted? Okay, let me ask the question a little bit differently, because some of you would say, well, yeah, I'm wanted, but come on, in the insecurities of who you are, even when people look at you, when your spouse looks at you, whenever your mom looks at you, whenever somebody looks at you and say, oh, darling, you're exactly what I want, there's something inside of you that says, that's not true, right? Isn't that weird how we're like that? There's something inside of us because I think we know us, right? Kind of like all the things that the psalmist just described about who God is and the fact that he knows us so intimately, and we think to ourselves, there's no way that God can know me as well as I know me because I don't even like me. And yet the truth is that God not only knows you the way you know you, but he knows the you behind the you know. He knows the whys, the things that you sit there and you stay up at night and think, why did I do that? Why did I torpedo that? Why did I blow up that relationship? He knows what's wrong. He knows what's inside here. Now, listen. With those lenses, right? With the idea that I just framed, because I want Psalm 139 to frame the story that we're about to enter into. You gotta do that. So with those lenses on, I want you to turn your Bibles to Luke chapter 19. Luke chapter 19, listen to this. Jesus entered Jericho. He's on his way to Jerusalem. He's going to be crucified. He's going to be betrayed. He's going to be tried, all those things. So Jesus entered into Jericho and made his way through the town. There was a man there named Zacchaeus. He was the chief tax collector in the region, and he became very rich. Now, I know, we spent a lot of time on this already, and please just stick with me. But one of the things you need to understand is that it's so important to know that tax collectors in this day and time, they were the bottom of the rung. They were the worst of the worst. They were people who had betrayed their people already. They were working for the Romans who were oppressing. They were taking away from their own people. Not only were they doing that, but they were fleecing them. They were taking more than they should have taken. They were cheats on top of cheats, right? So they were the worst of the worst. And can I just tell you, they wouldn't be allowed in any church within Jerusalem. I know there wasn't really a church at that time, but synagogue, nothing. You couldn't hang out with religious folks, okay? Anybody that represented God, they wanted nothing to do with you because you were the bottom of the rung. You were the worst of the worst. So let's go on from here. Zacchaeus, he's a tax collector. It says he tried to get a look at Jesus, but he was too short to see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed the sycamore fig tree beside the road, for Jesus was going to pass that way. Now, in light of what we learned in Psalm 139, look at this. The fact that God knows the real you, your thoughts, your history, your fears, your joys, and your sorrows. Let's look at this. Zacchaeus hears that Jesus is coming to town, right? Stay with me. And in his mind, he thinks, I've heard of this Jesus. I would love to get just a look. I hear that he hangs out with prostitutes. I hear that he hangs out with sinners. I hear he even has one of mine, a tax collector, in his group. I just want to see him. These are the things that have got to be going through his mind, because there's no other reason to go out there and climb in this tree. There's no other reason to go and to see Jesus other than the fact that I would like to at least put my eyes on the man that everybody else is talking about. I just want to be able to see him, to know that before I die, I saw him. Whenever all the stories are told, I had the opportunity to see him. But surely he wouldn't want anything to do with me, because all of God's people want nothing to do with me. And then listen to this. When Jesus came by, knowing Zacchaeus' thoughts, he looked up at Zacchaeus and called him by name. How did he know his name? How did he know his name? He had never met Zacchaeus. How did he know his name? Because God knows everything about you. He knew why Zacchaeus climbed up in the tree. He knew what Zacchaeus' secret hope was. He knew that Zacchaeus was hoping somehow, some way, maybe not only will I see him, but maybe Jesus will turn his eyes towards me. Maybe our eyes will meet. Maybe I'll see love in those eyes. Maybe, just maybe, Jesus will wave at me. Maybe Jesus may even say, "Hi there." He never thought that Jesus would come to the foot of the tree. But Jesus did. Why? Because Jesus knew his thoughts. Jesus knew his name. Listen to this. "Zacchaeus," he said, "quick, come down. I must be a guest in your house today." Why? Because I know you, because I love you, and because I want you. You may not feel like you're wanted by anybody else, but I know you, I love you, and I want you. Zacchaeus quickly climbed down and took Jesus to his house in great excitement and joy. Why? Why did he take him with great excitement and joy? Because Jesus knew him, because Jesus loved him, and because Jesus wanted him. But the people were displeased. "He has gone to be with the guest of a notorious sinner," they grumbled. Now, why would the people grumble? Why would they be displeased? I tell you why. I mean, before we even get to that, just think about this. Why would you be upset when the most notorious sinner in the town is now having an audience with Jesus? Wouldn't we kind of get excited about that? Come on. The worst person in your life. Come on, right? Come on, let's just think about it. The person you think to yourself, there's no possible way. God would never be able to reach them. They'll never go to church. They never give their life to Jesus. All of a sudden, Jesus shows up and says, "Hey, can I come to your house?" And your friend says, "Sure." Wouldn't you be thinking, "Praise God. Oh, man, this is awesome. I didn't think it'd ever go down like this," right? Why are they displeased? Why are they so upset about the situation? This is why. Because they didn't know God's heart. They misunderstood him. And consequently, they misrepresented him. Can you see how knowing the heart of God can inform the actions of God? I can't help wonder how many times I have blamed God for things in my life that really God had nothing to do with. How many times I have thought, "God, why don't you do something about that?" but yet not know that he is doing something about it. How many times I've said, "God, why don't you send somebody to do something there?" and God said, "I sent you, go." We misunderstand God. And when we misunderstand God, we misrepresent God. And here are these religious people watching Zacchaeus walk with Jesus and his disciples to his house, and I'm sure they're sitting there just like this, got their arms all folded, mumbling to each other, "I can't believe him." But they don't know the heart of God, the heart that pursues. I don't care who you are. I don't care how far away you've strayed. I don't care how fast you've ran. I don't care how messed up your mind is with regards to who God is. He pursues you relentlessly. Listen to this. Verse 8. "Meanwhile, Zacchaeus stood before the Lord and said, 'I will give back half of my wealth to the poor. Lord, and if I have cheated people on their taxes,'" which I don't know why he said if, but "if I've cheated people on their taxes, I will give them back 4 times as much." It's amazing what happens when we discover the heart of God and you realize that he knows you, that you can't hide from him, that he's pursuing you, that you can't outrun him. Something happens in your heart. And can I just share this with you? Because I don't know if all of you totally buy into this. And listen, I'm talking to the entire audience, right? Some of you may be far from God. Some of you may not know God. Some of you you just kind of showed up and you're kind of wondering, hey, is there even anything to this God? I don't know where you're at. Maybe some of you have been followers of God for a long, long time. But can I just tell you, listen to what I'm about to say. Every encounter with God is an invitation home. He knows your thoughts. He knows you intimately. He loves you beyond anything you could ever imagine, and he wants you. And there are times and there are moments in your life that you're struggling, and you look around, and you're wondering, God, where are you? And God sends somebody, but you don't always see him, right? Like they show up and they're sitting there and they're talking with you and they're telling you a little bit about who God is or something. Maybe the conversation just naturally moves towards that and you're not sure why it's going that way. That is an encounter with God. And an encounter with God is an invitation to come home. It is always an invitation to come home. There are no accidents. There are no coincidences when it comes to encounters with God. It's not like Jesus didn't know. I believe with all my heart that he knew. He walked into Jericho thinking, where is Zacchaeus? Where's that guy going to be? Ah, there he is. And he's done the same thing for you. Same thing for you. He pursues you. Look at Jesus' response. Verse 9. Jesus responded, salvation has come to this home today. For this man has shown himself to be a true son of Abraham, what that means, let me just kind of translate that for you. It means that he has become a child of God today. He has placed his trust in me. For the Son of Man, now listen, the Son of Man, he's talking about himself, for Jesus, for me, for the Messiah, came to seek and to save those who are lost. God is for you, he is pursuing you, and he is seeking you for the purpose of saving you. This is so cool. That word saved in the original language in the Greek here, this is so, what it means to rescue, right? Right? Everyone kind of gets that, saved, you know, been saved out of the rushing waters, right? I mean, you get that part. But it also can mean to make whole. Isn't it true? Isn't it true that life is somewhat incomplete? Oh, no. Isn't it true that life is just absolutely incomplete? I mean, isn't it true there's moments, there's times when you're sitting there and you're pursuing what you thought was going to make you happy. You get what you thought was going to make you happy and you're not happy. I wanted it so badly. I need that. And then you go on to the next thing and then the next thing and then the next thing. And you're constantly wondering, why can't I just be satisfied? Why can't I be made whole? It's because only God can fill that. He has come to seek and to make you whole. Those who are lost. And the word lost there, it means to grope around in the darkness, which is exactly the way you feel when you feel empty inside, when you feel as though I can't find that fulfillment. And it can happen at any moment. I need you to understand this. There are some in the room that maybe you don't know Jesus, and you're groping, and you're wondering, and you're trying to fill your life with all kinds of things, and you don't really believe that this thing, this simple thing, this Jesus could be the thing, but he is the thing. And some of you are here, and you've kind of taken your eyes off of Jesus, and you've looked at other things, and you think, maybe this will fulfill me, and it isn't, and you're wondering, what happened to that fullness that I used to feel? It's because you're no longer attached, or you're attached, but you're not looking to him. You're lost. You're wondering about, why isn't life the way it was at one time? It's because you've lost your way, and he came to make us whole. That's why God is pursuing us. That's why he sent Jesus. And really, honestly, because I was thinking about, okay, how on earth do you bring this to a close? And there's so many different things that I could say, but the thing that really hit me, I think we need to become like Zacchaeus. I think we need to realize, oh my God, this God knows me. He knows me. He loves me. And he wants me. And then we've got to just surrender and say, I don't know what this means, but I give up. I quit. You're all I need. You're everything to me. I think that's what we need to do. That's what I'm going to ask you to do today. See, the heart of God, it's for you. The heart of God pursues you. The heart of God loves you and knows you and wants you. So today, would you go ahead and say, okay, I'm done. I'm through. I'm going to surrender. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to invite you to pray with me, okay? Some of you, like I said, some of you, you've been followers of Christ for a long time, and I get that. Maybe your prayer is going to go something really simple. Lord, I am so sorry for putting other things in the way. Lord, I am so sorry for pursuing other things whenever you're pursuing me. I am so sorry for selling my heart to other things. But some of you are here today, and you didn't really realize that God's been pursuing you. You thought going to church was about getting good things from God or getting God on your side. No. See, this isn't an accident. He brought you here to have an encounter with him so that he can invite you home. So would you do that today? I'm going to ask you to pray with me. You can pray silently in your heart. You don't have to say the words that I say, but I'm going to ask you to just kind of pray something like this. Dear God, Lord, I have messed things up in my life. I have sought so many things trying to find some sort of fulfillment. God, I've shunned you in all of that. Lord, please forgive me. Forgive me of my sin. God, cleanse my heart. God, be Lord of my life. I want to follow you. I want to know you intimately. Please, God, thank you so much for sending your son to die on the cross for me, to make it possible for me to have a relationship with you. Help me to be the person you want me to be. For I ask this in your precious and holy name. Amen. Now listen, here's what I want you to do. On the back of your connection cards, there's a place, and it's just a really simple thing. It's just that God is pursuing me. And what I'd love to do, and it's going to be a twofold thing. I would love for everybody in the room to take their card and to just admit, God's pursuing me. Would you just make that statement? God's pursuing me. And then some of you, if you're in the room and you have made a decision for Jesus, right? You actually prayed that prayer, and you know that today I'm a follower of Jesus. Would you tell me that? There's another place on the back of the card where it says becoming a Christian. If you just mark that as well and give me your name on the front, I'd love to get a hold of you this week. And let's talk about that decision. But would you do that? You can give it to me on the way out, or you can place it into the giving can, but just make sure that I get a hold of this. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.